Today, I'm talking to Dale Boutiette of Compass, San Francisco. With over 30 years of real estate experience, he and his wife Alla are the dynamic duo of San Francisco real estate. Dale is consistently ranked in the top 1% of San Francisco realtors, the top 100 team in the Bay Area, and honored in the Wall Street Journal as a top California realtor. We talk about how to find the solution no matter what the situation. Thanks for listening to the Jerry Metcalf podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. This podcast was created for real estate agents across the country to come together, sharing ideas to take your, their, and our business to the next level. All right, everybody, it's the Jerry Metcalf podcast where top real estate agents tell how they do it. And today we are thrilled to have an agent consistently producing in the top 20 of San Francisco with his team, Dale Boutiette, who's on a team with his wife, Alla. Dale.
Hi.
Bringing us on the show, or coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Jerry. I really appreciate it.
So we're going to learn a lot about you. I'm going to give everybody a quick preview. We're going to talk about you transition to this business from law, you work with your spouse, and you're in the top 20 of 4,000 agents in your market.
Right.
I'm kind of giving it all away, but I want to make sure we hit on those things and everybody knows what they're about to hear because it's good stuff. So,
okay, great.
How did you come from being an attorney to a real estate agent? If there's anything before that relevant to becoming a real estate agent, tell us now.
Sure. So, I've lived in San Francisco my entire adult life, 30 years now, and began investing in real estate 28 years ago in San Francisco. And, always wanted to do something, wanted to go to grad school, wanted to make a difference, ended up going to law school, did, passed the bar, did litigation for 3 years, these huge cases. And then I was like, wait, this is not for me. I'm like a cog in the machine. And I really wanted to have an impact on people's lives. So I quit that and I started my own estate planning practice, doing trusts and estates and probates for people, and quickly grew that practice. And that was kind of my calling, because I was really helping people. I have this knack of, a lot of people would say, like, Dale, how can you make us laugh when we're talking about dying? And, because you always have a good joke and there's always a one-liner. It's like when somebody would say, oh, if I die, it's like, hey, wait a second. Maybe you're going to be a statistical anomaly, but I thought all of us die eventually.
Convince ourselves of that.
So grew the practice for, we had 3 offices throughout the state. We're on the cover of California Lawyer magazine. And then due to various events, some of them were internal in my law practice. I brought 2 partners in and they were fighting a lot. And then also my wife had a serious illness, cancer. My kids were 8 and 10 at the time. So I took some time off of the law practice and was obviously reevaluating things that were important to me in my life. And I kept coming back to real estate. We were investing in real estate. We had some great successes in it. I always found the agents we were using, both my wife and I were like, gosh, these people don't know what they're doing. And why do we know more than they know? And then I just decided one day I handed the keys basically to my law partners. I said, here you go. You get all my clients, just keep my health coverage for 3 more months. And then started selling real estate and haven't looked back. So I practiced law for 11 years and I'm now in my 14th year of selling real estate.
Wow. So you were in law for 11?
Yeah.
And real estate for 14 now?
Yeah.
Litigation, how long did you do that?
I did that for 3 years and had my own practice for 8, my law practice.
And so let's touch on this quickly, but I do kind of want to know because I wonder if other people are thinking the same thing. Litigation there's a lot of kind of negotiation and positioning and it's probably less friendly than residential real estate. But did you learn anything or pull anything out of your experience there into,
I mean, that's a great question. And really what I found is that my training as an attorney and through law school has helped me immensely. Here in California, we're a non-attorney state for real estate, which means that the agents we're writing the actual offer that becomes the contract, which, it's a form. And then we're taking our clients through all the disclosures. And if we're working with sellers, we're helping them fill the disclosures out. So there's a lot of nuance. There's a lot of how do you phrase things component. So that's kind of the backdrop. But then, I find myself often quizzing my fellow agents on things like, you wrote in your offer that the buyer requests the washer and dryer. And I would say to them, I think you might want to rewrite that, because that's not a condition. That's just a request. So
that's just a statement of fact.
Exactly. Exactly. So, and that's a really basic lesson. But, on the negotiation front, yes, even in litigation, what we're often working with was trying to find, after, arguing for years, trying to find commonality and solutions. And I think that's been kind of a real blessing to the real estate practice, is because, to be effective, you really have to be able to work through problems and negotiate through issues. A great example is, I represented a buyer on a condo, and it's a day before we're supposed to close, and the listing agent calls me in a panic and says, I don't know what happened, but there is no hot water to the master bathroom at all. And so I called my clients and I said, hey, there's a little issue here. I think we might have to delay closing. They're like, no, we've got the movers. Everything's. So I met with the listing agent at the property. We investigated what was going on, brought out somebody, figured out a solution that would work for everybody, to keep that transaction moving forward. And in real estate, we, unlike law where you're very adversarial, here in certain cases you really have to work with the other agent. And sometimes you have to actually not just work with them, but work for them and tell them what to do. It's like we had one person whose buyer didn't qualify for financing because, as it turns out, they ran some sort of medical marijuana business and the bank wouldn't lend to them. So we were like,
wow.
And this is at the 11th hour. He's panicked. They have no contingencies. They're going to lose almost $100,000 deposit.
Wow.
And so we're like, we found the lender that will lend to them, got them in touch, and made it happen, all while, the buyer's agent was sort of sitting there with wide eyes. So,
wow.
So it's really important to there's the negotiating, positioning piece of it. And then there's like, when there's a problem, I always say and I mentor a lot of agents, when you encounter a problem, don't be a part of the problem, be a part of the solution.
When you encounter a problem, don't be part of the problem, be a part of the solution.
Correct.
Or if you're not a part of the solution, you're a part of the problem.
Yes, there you go. There you go. So yeah, the negotiation's been, the lessons in that are really helpful. And a lot of, I don't know if it's the same in every location, but what I found is that my clients are really uncomfortable negotiating.
Yeah.
They don't like it. I have to tell them always, just leave it to me. I will not.
The funny thing is I negotiate really well for other people. Like sometimes I'm like, wow, that was all, but for me, I want to give it all up. Just want to give to the world.
Yeah.
Other people, I'm very protective. Like, oh no, you might want, we're not going to have that. Right. It's so funny.
Right.
So one quick question though, like, because people love to hear about negotiating and I do. What is if there's one like phrase you could sum up good advice on negotiating, or what is your one piece of advice in 5 words? What is that?
I would say that a solution exists. And, when you're looking at negotiating, a solution always exists. And it's my style where I don't play winner take all, because I think that can backfire in many ways. Here's an example. Let's say I'm representing a seller and the buyer's made a request for a credit because of an inspection where, I think it's rather dubious, this new information they may have found, and so does my seller. And what I'll tell a seller is like, yeah, you can play hardball. We can certainly make this difficult for them. But remember, they're going to be moving into your house. If they feel like they've been wronged, they'll be looking for things.
Yeah.
And if you haven't fully disclosed things, and even though you think you have, they will be looking for things to cause problems. So let's throw them a bone. Like I had a situation recently where somebody was asking for a $15,000 credit. Uh-huh. And after asking questions of the buyer's agent and then having a seller who was irate with this aspect, what it came down to is all they wanted is a little something. So that 13,000 became 2,000 and everybody's happy now.
Well, because because the other thing is when you approach it with an open-minded solution, some people say, oh, that's wimpy or whatever. But the reality is sometimes when you approach things with that mentality of not winner take all or somebody's got to lose, you discover there are things each party can provide that make it a better win, or that the other party could provide that makes it a better win for them. And it happens to also make it a better win for you.
Right.
All right. Next question. What is it to work with your spouse? What would Alla say, or what do you say, and what's advice on making that work? And how long have y'all been working together? So we know.
So Alla, to step back, Alla had left. She has an MBA and was leading a marketing department in a large Fortune 500 corporation. Running a marketing department of about 900 people, and finally got burnt out. Quit, and she started selling real estate about 2 years before I joined her. And then she got ill, and then I decided to join her. So the first year, and so it's been 14 years that we've been working together. The first year was interesting because we have very different skill sets, to the point where it's almost yin and yang, where my strengths are her weaknesses and her strengths are my weaknesses. And for a while, we were kind of clashing on style more than anything. And then after about a year, it dawned on us both from a working perspective. It's like, wait a second, our combined strengths are so great and bigger than the average that, together by harnessing that, we can be a real force. And once we kind of embrace that model, if you will, and took to what each of our strengths were, our business just took off. Now, the hard part on the personal side is, as you know, Jerry, and probably most of the listeners out there, is like, if you're in real estate, there's no off button. We were with sellers last night till 9:30 at night. And then I had another call right after that lasted until almost 10:30. And, if you were to interview my kids, they would be like, I hate real estate because that's all mom and dad talked about all the time. So the real challenge for us has been to say, okay, when are we going to just be a married couple? And that's taken even more time to sort of figure that out. But I think we finally figured it out where we have a bit of a balance.
Let's start with, and then I'm going to go backwards on what you were talking about, but what is the secret to finding that balance? And being able to work together.
I think
we're still a married couple time.
Yeah. And we've been married for 27 years. So, you know, half of that time we were not working together, and half of the
That
time we,
helps.
um, you know, I think it's been, you know, a lot of times we have, like, let's say it's 9 o'clock at night and we're about to sit down and watch a TV show or something. And there's something that I'm thinking about work related. I used to, you know, share it with her and get her opinion. And now I just make a note and I bring it up in the morning. And so she's doing the same thing so we can have that space to talk about other things and to do other things other than real estate. And then it's helped a lot. It takes a lot of discipline though.
I was going to say, it takes a lot of discipline, but this quote keeps coming by me in my life recently. Discipline is freedom.
Yeah.
Your discipline gives you that. There's a little bit of, it's freeing to be able to have a wife and also to be able to be, I mean, obviously you have a wife, but to be that to one another, take that time to do it, which requires discipline.
Yeah. And, you know, we're of the, you know, I was telling her the other day is like, I couldn't imagine doing this business without her. I wouldn't want to. It's so much fun with her, to share the successes and then, you know, the occasional like, bummer moments, but, you know, having that person in the same court as you and understanding that you might be on a listing appointment until 9 p.m., even if she's not there, and not feeling, upset or neglected about it is super helpful.
Right. My husband's in commercial real estate, so he has a lot more off time.
Yeah.
On time is intense, but he gets my constant on time because he understands you've got to be available.
Right.
You know, but that's having a supportive spouse that's probably a huge part of it. So how do you be a married couple? And then we touched on it a little bit, but what is the one or what are the three key things or to being able to, outside of get your married time together when you're working together, it's easy to get impatient. It's easy to take for granted the unconditional love or the assumed unconditional love. How do you set your boundaries and manage that?
Well, I think, you know, a big part of that from the work perspective is to understand each other very well, understand what our relative strengths are. And in our case, I generally am the front facing piece of our business. I am generally speaking with the clients. I'm interacting with the other agents. I'm in charge. I'm the face of the deals that are happening.
You're on the podcast.
And Alla, it loves running the business and managing our team. We have, you know, a full-time marketing person and a full-time operations manager and a buyer's agent. And she just loves making our team better, you know, helping them our people enhance their skills, and really doesn't have an interest in being the face of the franchise, so to speak.
That's great. So you don't have to fight over that.
Yeah. And so I get to rely on the fact that, or have a comfort that everything's being handled. So I can just go do my thing, what I'm really good at. And she is comfortable knowing that, hey, I've got all the clients taken care of. They're all feeling good.
By generating the next deal or closing it or engaging it, or that's great.
Exactly. So I'm out there prospecting. I'm talking to people. I'm engaged in our community, and so I'm.
So what was the moment? Because looking at this, it's like, well, it's obvious, of course. Like, what took you so long? But is there a story behind how you found your magic or how you found you fit together? Or was there a moment? There had to be something that said, oh, duh.
Well, there was, and this is a year, this was a year after we started working together. And
13 years ago.
Yeah. And I was working with a particular seller on selling his house in San Francisco. And, you know, Alla would be interjecting her opinion about what I need to do, what I need to say, how I need to say it, when I need to say it. And it was really frustrating me. And she's a very smart, driven, kind of similar type A-ish person that I am. And so I snapped at her and made her feel really bad. I won't forget this one. And I really, even to this day, I regret it. But and then I found myself doing the same thing to her, and sort of telling her what to do and how to do it. And then, we were like, should we really be working together, or should we just be doing our own thing? And then there was one night over dinner where we realized, she's like, oh, you're really good at this. And I was like, you're really good at that.
Aww.
And then we're like, yeah, and I don't like doing what you're good at, and you don't like doing what I'm good at. So let's do those things that we're good at and support each other. And luckily, we'd been married already for more than 14 years at that time. And so, had a really strong sort of love and foundation where we can have those honest conversations with one another. But yeah, that was kind of that litmus test, was like where we were like really nagging each other for no reason. There was no.
I think that's so great, because a lot of people are going to be listening to this for this part of the interview. Is that, how do you work? Like, we're just going to have to do another one, but how do you work with your spouse? Because most people get to where you got, and they're like, we just can't work together. And what I find, 3 things come to mind. Number 1, you hit a real problem, and in every problem is a solution or an opportunity, which is what you turn that into, which leads me to what you focus on gets bigger. You could have focused on, kept your focus on the negativity, kept your focus on wasn't working, but you turned around and you looked at gratitude. Well, what do I appreciate about you? Because you loved one another. What is, what are the positives in this? And finding that opportunity in the problem, focusing on the positives of it, led you to the solution and to a stronger relationship, which is the last one. Is it's kind of, you've developed a truly real relationship, not just a roommate for life.
Right.
The process of actually working together.
Right.
A lot of people, I think, would say the opposite happens. And you're a great example of that not being the case.
Yeah. I think it's super important to understand that and come from a place of appreciation and gratitude just in general in life. It's, I feel very blessed and very fortunate to even, have my wife as my, as my partner
she's like
for
an
life.
Angel on earth. I mean,
she is
such a kind, and you're the same. You're louder about it. When you say that, I just think of her and what her being and what she's like, and it couldn't be more true.
Yeah, she's truly an amazing person, and I feel very lucky to have her in my life. And I know, if you asked her, she'd probably say the same thing about me. That and so yeah, it's been a real pleasure, and we certainly do not take for granted most of the time each other, and nor our situation, and nor our family or our clients, who really we kind of even treat like family.
Yeah. I think
and it's
kind of your nature. Like the first time we met, I was like, oh, it's like my long lost brother.
Yeah.
You just know that you're taken care of with both of you.
Yeah.
Which leads me to, I think that's part of your secret sauce, being the top 20 out of 4,000 agents.
Yeah, it is.
Always in the top 1% of production.
Yep.
What is your secret sauce, and how do you do that, and how long did it take you to get there?
It didn't take long, because it's really a fundamental philosophy that we have, is always do what's in the other person's best interest. Give more of yourself than you receive in benefit. We feel very strongly about that. We have a lot of empathy and compassion for our clients. And they know, in part because we tell them, but also in part because we show them, that we will do anything for them. Anything. Like, yeah, of course we're selling their house or we're helping them buy their house. But we've had situations where I've had a client, for example, who was mentally unstable, and it's the day we're supposed to close. And I call her up. I said, how are you doing? And she was a mess. And I could tell she was a mess. And I said, are you finished packing? She says, I don't even know where to begin. So instead of going to the gym that morning, I drove over to her house. She had all the boxes. I helped her box everything up. I helped her put it in the U-Haul. And it was such a relief for her to have somebody who was going to take, I could have blown her off. I could have said, you know what? You've already caused enough heartache in my life, which she did. But you do what it takes to do what's in their best interest. And B, when people need help, you give them help.
Wow.
And that leads to referrals. It's people are like, wow, you ever want to get taken care of, call Dale and Alla, because they will not let you down.
Wow. Okay. So give us some good lessons learned and some challenging deals we can learn from you on. And is it that deal? Or I think we talked a little bit about another deal that you've had that is really challenging.
Yeah. So we had this, one very memorable deal where you really had to use every tool in my toolbox. We had a client selling a very unique home in San Francisco who is a pretty well-known person in the tech world. At first, he thought his house was worth, $27 million. And then we had to show him the numbers and, got him down to 18 million, but we really believed his house was more worth like 16 million, which is what he had paid for it like 4 years before. But he didn't want anybody to know he was selling his house. But we were supposed to sell his house.
But you got to keep it a secret. Right.
So we started down that path and we created like this website that had this elaborate password protection so that if somebody wanted access, they had to like contact us. Their access would expire in 72 hours and it couldn't be transferred and so on and so forth. And then finally, we just weren't getting any traction. So I had to have a conversation with one of his handlers because he was not easy to reach. And I said, look, you've told the world you're selling and moving. So let's show the world what you've got in this special place.
Yeah.
And so finally they acquiesce. So we're going along, showing it to people, and we finally get a young family. This was the perfect buyer. A young family. The guy and he and his wife had started a tech company, sold it probably for billions of dollars. I have no idea what their net worth is, but I would say they're billionaires. This is a perfect family house for them. It had solitude. It had views. It was a gorgeous house. And so we finally found our perfect buyer. They write an offer. Now, this house had a lot of Asian themes to it, from the grounds as you're walking up, a lot of, Japanese maple and just beautiful gardens. And right near the front door, and there's a little small porch. There's these two giant Fu lions carved out of stone.
Oh, wow.
And these things had to weigh, I would say, 500 pounds each. Massive. So I'm showing it, the place to them at night so they can check out the views and the skyline and the bridge views and all that. And we're walking out together with their agent. And they said, "Oh, are these lions included in the sale?" And I said, I don't know. They could be personal possessions. I don't know. But if you're interested in them, please write that in your offer. And well, sure enough, they forgot. And they didn't put them in. And then the buyer's agent is scrambling with me. It's like, oh my God, the buyers bought the property in an entity called Twin Lions LLC. So obviously they were really interested in the lions. So here I go, and
the house just comes with them, and then they're not.
Yeah. So I said to the seller, I said, look, they forgot to put this in. They want this included. And then he goes ballistic. He's basically saying, this is part of my valuable art collection, how dare them, so on and so forth. If they want these lines, then they have to pay for them, or you have to pay for them out of your commission.
God.
So I was referred this client from a very trusted referral source of mine, who kind of got word of this, and she basically said, you have to make this deal. You have to get this deal done. And I said, don't worry, I'm going to get the deal done, even if I have to take a massive cut in commission. So I said, I go to his family office guy. I said, what are these things worth? I don't know. Find an appraiser. I find an appraiser. Appraiser comes out, takes one look at it, and says, these are fakes. They're not worth anything on an auction market. He was thinking they were worth millions of dollars. So they're not, Ming Dynasty Fu lions. They're just somebody carved these beautiful lions out of some sort of stone. And so then I said, okay, I give them that information. I don't think he was happy about that, the seller. No. And then, so I said, and then now he's still insisting that they're paying for it or you're paying for it. Very angry for whatever reason. And it's kind of the billionaire pissing match in some respects. So
I'm having all kinds of ideas on how to handle this. This is not good, but it can be fun when you're not in the heat of it. But
So I tell the family office guy, I said, do you have a receipt for how much he paid for these? And sure enough, he comes back with a receipt, and they cost $45,000. And so I said to the buyer's agent, I said, look, seller doesn't want to give these up. But we'll sell them for $45,000. And look, if they're not open to that, in the interest of getting this deal done, let's split that in our commissions. Let's take it out of our commissions, get this baby done. Yeah. So as that's happening, there's a large condo association downhill directly next to this property that contacts me and says, hey, via email, we sent this letter to the seller about water intrusion from your property into our property, and nobody's responded.
Oh my gosh.
So now what do I have? I have a serious disclosure issue.
Yeah.
So I sort of put the Fu lions aside for a second, because now we've got something much more important that has the potential of millions of dollars of liability associated with it. And this is where my kind of legal skills really came in. I was on the phone with 2 or 3 of the lawyers on his team, on the seller's team, figuring out a response as to how we can tell the buyers about this. And then in a way where we can invite negotiations so that we can come up with an indemnity agreement that would be acceptable to both parties. And that was like almost a 2-week process where the lawyers were hammering out an indemnity agreement that worked and everybody was happy with. So, and then I was at the property and people were there doing inspections and trying to figure out the water intrusion and so on and so forth. I mean, talk about high stakes, high stress. But we solved that with an indemnity.
Not in this business yet may have changed their mind by now. Or if they're crazy enough, like most of us, they can't wait to get started.
And so So anyway, again, I didn't draft any indemnity agreement. That's a big no-no. Most lawyers won't even do them because there's so much liability associated with them. But the seller's team and the buyer's legal team, hammered one out, all copacetic, made part of the contract. And then as we're getting towards the 11th hour and we don't know what's going to happen with the Foo Lions and the $45,000 on a $16 million deal. So to put it in perspective for the buyer and the seller, that $45,000 is probably $4.50 to you and me, in terms of what that relative value is. So the buyer ended up buying them. And adding to the escrow in the end. And we closed it, had very happy seller and very happy buyer and a very happy and relieved referral source.
So other than you deal with, we deal, but that was a stressful one. What do you think? Because that's the kind of deal when you don't, those issues come up, and if they're not handled well, we all make decisions really with our emotions. That whole amygdala analogy, you can't make a decision without emotions. I think emotions get heightened. Deals can fall apart over the emotions that are triggered by that experience.
Very true.
How do you manage that to keep that deal from falling apart? I mean, what's your biggest advice, lesson, and what have you carried forward into your future deals from that experience?
Fantastic question. Really, I'm glad you brought that up, because what I think to be successful, first and foremost, as a real estate agent, is you cannot absorb the energy of your clients, of the other agent, and of their clients. Cool heads prevail. And when you have a situation like that, you have to say, I had an upset seller for a reason that I thought was actually somewhat silly. But I had to acknowledge that the seller was upset, that this was not about me, but I had to figure out a way to make this happen. I think it's really to really do this well too, is like, A, don't absorb energy. B, be a bulldog in terms of trying to figure out solutions. Don't give up. Don't just say, oh, well, I guess we're not going to have the deal go through, because everybody wanted the deal to go through. There was nobody at all that was going to say, well, we don't want this to happen. So it's our job to make it happen. Which is
full circle to what we said when we began with your litigation career. I said, what's your biggest advice? And you said, there is a solution.
Yes.
There is always a solution.
Always a solution.
Love it how that came full circle.
Yeah.
So one more question to dig deeper, and then we're going to tap into this final 3 to close out our interview. But I shouldn't even give that away yet, because I want to dig deep on this part. So, don't absorb their energy. Cool heads prevail. Be a bulldog to solve the issue. That's kind of your big takeaway, and our takeaway for that, an example of it. Cool heads prevail, or don't absorb their energy, really is a lot easier said than done, especially successful agents care.
Yes.
Whether it's luxury real estate or success, the common denominator of all luxury, all success, and Horst Schultz at the Ritz-Carlton says this, the common denominator is caring.
Yes.
So, and as people, we are very emotional beings.
Yes.
How do you, and I don't know if you've, I'm putting you on the spot, but how do you manage you've got to manage your own emotions before you do theirs?
Yes.
How do you do that?
There's a fair amount of self-talk, as we all have.
Out loud, like in the mirror?
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that, because a lot of people do that at work. See, my self-talk is just on the podcast. Anyway.
Yeah, there's a fair amount of self-talk, meaning like you just, I have, I have a real, I'm just going to say it. I have a real skill at the ability to be in a situation where it looks like it's pandemonium and everybody's losing their heads, and I could be the one to look around and figure out how to fix it.
Almost like you get calm in chaos.
Yes, I do. I actually sort of focus in, and I've had this since I was a little kid. It's uncanny. Like where people around me are freaking out, I just zoom in, get focused, and make things happen. So
that's what makes you a good broker, obviously. But go ahead.
So I think really for people who kind of start to see things slipping out of control or feel like overwhelmed by a situation in a deal or a transaction, I think the most important thing to come back to is this element of gratitude and understanding that, hey, I can do this. And this is one of the reasons I'm being hired, is to make this happen. If this is the importance of an agent, otherwise just a buyer and seller would get together and they would do their own deals. But there's so much involved.
Zillow would have put us out of business a long time ago.
Exactly. Here out in the West Coast now, there's all these tech companies doing AI real estate where they, are going to use artificial intelligence to find your buyer. And you don't need an agent. Don't spend money on an agent. And I just laugh at that because it's somewhat foolhardy.
That's a small part of the equation too. But go ahead.
It's kind of like this. It's like people need agents as much as a defendant in a criminal trial needs an attorney and the state needs a prosecuting attorney. You need an advocate. You need somebody on your side. And so I come back to this element of like, our job is to be at the side of our client and to do what's best for them. It's not about us. So the emotion that you might be feeling, if you're feeling that way and you're feeling overwhelmed, then call your manager, call a trusted colleague. If you don't have somebody in your inner circle to talk to, I'm lucky. I mean, my wife is a really smart person and I can bounce ideas off of her all day long. So I'm very lucky in that regard. But if you don't have that, then there's always somebody in your office or your manager that can help you in brainstorming solutions. Because again, I'm not, at the risk of a broken record, there's always a solution. And when we're looking at things from the perspective of, are we doing this to the benefit of our clients, to help them either get into the home of their dreams, maximize the sale price, or simply sell in a timely manner so they don't pay taxes or whatever it is, that's our job to do. So we just need to do it.
Love that. All right, final 3 questions. Number 1, what is the book we've got to read, life, career, and or both?
Oh, one of my favorites is oh gosh, I'm blanking on the name of it. The Gogiver.
Oh, that book comes up a lot. What's your biggest message in that?
In the Gogiver is your value as an agent is the difference between what you give and what you receive. Meaning that you are valued when you give more than you receive. That's the value proposition. And that's the mantra in my business and personal life.
So I have a question for you, because I've thought about that one in my life a lot lately, because I always find myself wanting to give. And I'll never forget, when I was a kid, I used to ride horses. And I don't know if I've ever told this story. It's just stuck with me because I was like 14. And my horse trainer, we were feeding horses one day, and she was showing me how to feed. And she said, always make sure you always give the horses at least as much as we promised we're going to feed. Whether it's, don't overfeed. You can't do that, all horse people. We know that's dangerous. But she just made a real point to really it came from feeding the horses, and she was giving a little extra this and that. And she said, my dad taught me always give more, like never be the one indebted, always be the one giving more and giving value. And I remember, I can see it like it was yesterday, and she's pouring the feed in the little tack room we're in. But recently, in the past few months, back to your point, is I thought, I wonder, because my husband says to me, he's like, Jerry, you are the luckiest person in the world. Why does it all, no matter how bad it might look, it always works out? And I think maybe that's where it came from. And I thought, I don't know, because some things sometimes. But at the end of the day, that came to mind. And I thought maybe it's because my intention and my habit, like to you, is always how do you get to be the top 1%? How do you get to be the best? And it's being the best and giving that value that you've arrived for and that people need you for.
Yeah. And so what I've found is that when I operate in that modality, first of all, like if I meet somebody for the first time, whether it's a buyer or seller, one of the first things I say to them is like, one of the reasons you're going to be comfortable working with me is not just because I'm great and I know my stuff and I've got great experience, but I'm going to do such a great job for you that you will feel like there's no other agent you can refer to. That when your friends are looking for an agent, you're going to stop them and say, you have to call Dale. Not like, oh, you should call Dale.
So
that's the level of service I'm going to provide you.
You're planting that seed for them.
Yes.
To refer you. You're planting it in your own mind to remember to do it.
Yep.
But the other magic of you, because I don't think I could pull that off. And I mean this as a compliment, and I know other agents that have done this, is you do it in a way that's so authentic and so transparent and so genuine, because that's truly who you are.
Oh yeah.
Receive it as that, and not arrogance, not anything else.
Oh, and I mean it. Like, and exactly. I mean that if I'm not
I can feel it, by the way, and I know your clients do too.
Yeah. If I'm not exceeding your expectations, I've failed.
Oh, if I'm not exceeding your expectations, I've failed. Next question.
So here's an example.
Oh no. I've got another question. I'm kidding. No, give it.
Just a super quick example.
Yes, please.
Helped a person buy this really beautiful condo, $2 million. She was moving back from Switzerland to San Francisco. There was about a 2-month period before she was moving in. I knew when she was moving in. I called her up. I said, hey, I know you're moving this weekend. Do you want me to come over and help you move? She's like, no, thank you so much. So then, it comes to moving day. I texted her. I said, hey, I know today's moving day. Do you want me to come over and help you move? And she texted me back and she said, I'm so sorry. Thank you. That's so nice of you to offer that. My father just passed away yesterday, and I ended up not moving. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. So then I'm trying to reach her, and I'm like, where are you? Like, I don't know where your office is. I want to send flowers. I'm nothing. So then finally I find out from somebody else who'd referred her when her moving day was, and there was a huge bouquet of flowers waiting for her when she walked in the door for that.
Wow.
And she texted to me and said, you made my family's day. You made us feel better. And those are the sort of, now I did that because I genuinely care for her and her situation. But I also know that if she knows of anybody who's going to buy or sell, she's going to be that person, be like, hey, you got to call Dale.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great example and a great story. Okay. Next question. Now, this could be a strategy you implement. This could be a technology tool you use, from an app to a CRM. This could be a way that you listen or have conversations, or even scripting, as much as I don't like that word. But there's a time and a place, I suppose. Anyway, or a way that you listen or ask questions. But whatever it is there a tool that you use in business that keeps you in check, that you couldn't be successful without, beyond all the others, so that it's the most valuable?
I'm not a big script person, which drives.
I'm going to add to that. I'm a big listener person, right?
Yeah. I think really for me, it's, listening is the biggest thing that I can do. Beyond like, the CRM, it's all well and good having contactually, that's all great. But, being able to listen to people and what they're actually saying, because sometimes what they're talking about relates to something else that isn't even coming up. I had a situation very recently where, it was clear that this couple was breaking up, and as a result of that, there was probably going to be a house sale. And I just listened to the husband about like kind of the trauma of doing this. And, we went up to lunch one time, and then I took him out for drinks another time, just to be a sounding board and a guy that, he could talk to about his feelings and the real difficulty associated with that aspect. And, just stayed in touch, checking in, making sure I was available for that person. And then a couple months after, that, it was like, hey, talk to our spouse and our attorneys, and we'd love for you to sell our home. I didn't seek that out necessarily, but I give the credit of that listing to the fact that I was listening compassionate and empathetic to that person.
That makes our job a lot easier as well when we do that.
Yeah.
And you said earlier the listening, and then you said earlier something about realizing it's not about me, which comes back into, they're not getting the deal for you. At the end of the day, yes, we've got to make money, make a living, but where the value comes from is what we're doing for them.
Right. And that's the huge piece.
Last question. If there's one thing that you hope we remember, if we're going to forget everything else, what should we remember from this interview, or what do you hope we do?
One thing, boy. I would say that to find success in this business, a long-term success, build relationships and not transactions. So focus on building more and more relationships, and worry less and less about the number of transactions you do.
I'm writing that down because that's so good. So focus on building more and more relationships, or deeper relationships.
Yeah.
And focus less on more and more transactions.
Yeah, because we tend to be, and even I go there sometimes, we set goals in our business plans of how many transactions do we want to do this year? How many sides do we want to do? So we set that goal, but that is, I don't look at a particular person or thing as a transaction. I look at that person or that thing as an opportunity to build a relationship that might flower into a transaction at some point, or a referral for a transaction.
Fulfill your purpose to help people.
Right. And for me, it makes what I do fun. I don't chase transactions. I chase relationships is another way to put it.
Love it. All right, Dale, thank you.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Jerry. It's been great.